Stephen, I am so excited to have you on the show today. We have already done quite a bit of chatting, but we're going to tune the audience into what's been going on, and we're going to start by introducing you. So why don't you just start by giving us a little bit of background? Where are you from? What was it like growing up? Where you're from? You know, siblings in the household, family. Who are you?
Who am I? I'm originally from South Carolina. I'm from the capital of South Carolina, Columbia, and I grew up with two other siblings. So there was three of us. Feel very, very blessed to say that both of my parents were in the home for us. Which, by the way, they're coming up on 52 years of marriage, which is
Ooh.
crazy. And no entanglement. Shout out to, Jada Pinkett Smith. Like they actually rocked it all the way through and through. So
That's got to
that's
be
where I
like
came up.
world record territory. There are so few people who made it that far without entanglement. Like just to be a boy growing up in a two-parent household. Woo!
Right. Yeah, which coming up, that's all I knew. So, I was thinking that was, more normative. But as I grew and aged and matured, I realized how much of a blessing it really was. So, really thankful for my folks and my upbringing. Very salt of the earth, very regular. Like I can remember my friends getting like Road Runner internet, and we were just waiting to get that AOL dial up with all the crazy sounds. I know that's killing you guys' ears that listen on the podcast, but that's how I came up.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was just talking to somebody the other day about, I've been alive since before Google, and I was like, girl, I was like, oh wait, I've been alive since before Google too.
Right.
That's a
Right.
thing now.
Yeah, it is.
So
So yeah.
what about childhood memories of money? Was it something that was talked about in your household? Do you remember a piggy bank or an allowance? What were the conversations being had as a child that you remember?
Yeah, so my dad was a entrepreneur. He had a furniture reupholstery business, so like fixing up furniture and things like that. So I can remember being 4 years old and sweeping the floors um, at my dad's shop. And I'd get a little money for doing it. Like he'd pay us as siblings, like we'd work in the business, and sometimes my mom too. So I got to learn early a work ethic of you put in the work, you get compensated for that. My parents, they are, and even to this day, they're very generous. They're givers. So they taught my siblings and I to be generous, to think about others, to give. They also taught us about it's important to save a little money, to have some on the side for later on or things that you may want. So I'm thankful to say we did have a good bit of those conversations coming up. And I did have a piggy bank too, um, that I put coins and dollar bills in.
And imagine at four, the piggy bank was probably the storage place. As you got a little bit older, you might have started to store the money somewhere else.
Right. We started with the piggy bank, and eventually I was actually able to have an account, an actual bank account to put money in instead.
Would you describe your upbringing as like middle class, or how would you describe your
Yes,
overall general?
yes. I describe middle class upbringing, um, and yeah, we didn't have necessarily super fancy stuff, but I felt extremely wealthy and rich as far as in love and joy and peace and things of that sort. So I'm really thankful for that.
That's really dope. What about like your first job, maybe in high school, like the high school age when you're going off and you work for someone? Did you have a job like that, where it's like outside of what the entrepreneurial world for your dad?
Yeah, so I would do work at my dad's shop, and I did it for a while. But the one of the first like non working in my dad's business type of jobs that I had was at a dry cleaners. And like now, people that know where I came up, they would even know exactly what I'm talking about. It was the dry cleaners by the Bilo grocery store. I think it was like the $1.69 cleaners. And so I would be just doing all the stuff around moving the clothes and make sure things got pressed and that things were prepared. So I did that, and I did work at a bowling alley for a short stint. But I
Which
actually
one was
stopped working.
better, the bowling alley or the dry cleaner?
So the bowling alley was a cooler setup than the cleaners, but the problem was in the bowling alley, and I may be dating myself, like you could smoke in there, like people would
Yo.
smoke cigarettes. So like it would be all up in my clothes. And I was just like, man, I can't keep doing this. So even though I could bowl for free, I was like, nah, I'm good. Versus the cleaners, at least it was a better environment.
I don't know. The cleaners has a very distinct smell as well, though. Like that is not pleasant. I don't know if it's as bad as cigarette smoke, but
Right, right, right. The chemicals, they don't hit you quite the same as the smoke. So, but I don't know.
right.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So, what were the plans for after high school? Was there conversations in the household about college is a must, or it's a maybe, or did you already know what you wanted to do? What was the intent for when we turned like our first adulthood in the 18 or graduating from high school plan?
So for me, I was always really good with numbers. So good with math, good with numbers and kind of statistics. I kind of my mind worked that way. And so my thought was, hey, well, engineers are pretty good at math. And I'm good with science and things like that, and just remembering stuff and how things work. So when I went to school, I studied engineering, and I knew that that's where I was gonna go. And I already had a feel for what engineers made, that they, made a solid income. But I'll be real with you, Lauryn. My mentality was that I knew I wanted to get work that I'd get compensated well for, and I wanted it to be good compensation early because I at least had a reasonably loose understanding of the earlier I start putting money aside, the better it'll be for me later on in life. So the plan was always get a good paying job so I could live within my means and really set aside more money early.
Okay, so did you become an engineer then? Did you go off to school? Where? Tell us the rest of the story. I'm interested.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I did. I got my bachelor's in engineer from Clemson University.
Oh
Um,
boy.
hey, easy now, easy now. All right, so yeah, I got an engineering degree, and launched right into that world of being a professional with engineering, and actually was able to couple like sales and engineering together in my first gig out of school, and it was ideal
Okay, I
because
love it. So you set a goal and was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to go to school for this. I went to school for this, and I'm going to go get that good, higher paying income than that kind of regular, right out of school, entry level income because of the profession I picked. Were there conversations kind of being had in the household that made you kind of set up this plan? Or how do you feel like you originally came up with, I want to be an engineer and I know they make more money than kind of your average fresh out of school job, and that's why I'm going to choose this path?
I wish I could say it was like this super deep plan, but it really was just, hey, I knew I was good with math, and I had heard that engineers make pretty good income, and maybe done a few online searches to see kind of what they made, and I was like, okay, all right, this is legit. Um, And so that was the thought, and my parents were supportive. They're just like, hey, apply yourself, do well with school. And so that was really the plan. And one thing I will say is that while I was in school, I did internships. I did like a co-op too, where I actually worked and got paid while I was in school and also was getting experience at the same time. So that helped me be able to command a better gig coming out of school because I already had done some work.
I love it. So it sounds like you kind of naturally bumped into some of the resources that others miss out on in the form of somebody planted a seed at some point. Like you said, you heard that engineering was something that paid well. So if those conversations aren't being had, then maybe the opportunity maybe doesn't come up in the same way. But then also, like you said, I'm in school and I'm doing internships, I'm doing other opportunities. I'm taking advantage of not just getting the education and hanging out, some of the stereotypical things, but I'm trying to make sure that I look really good on paper so that when I get out of school, I have the best earning potential possibility available to me. That's
Right.
really dope.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Okay,
it.
so you get out of school, you get this good job that you refer to as ideal. How did you sort through the kind of the financial aspects of this first job, and where was your kind of like mind space and your financial organizational skills at this point?
So here's all I knew is when I started. So there's this movie. I'm gonna just break it down for y'all, just so y'all can see how this thing really came together. So there's this movie called Inside Man that Denzel's in. I believe a guy named Clive Owen is in it as well. Um, and there was a line in the movie that stuck with me like for life, where someone said, when there's blood in the streets, buy property. And I'm like, man, that's random. It's some movie about, like some kind of like bank heist out, and no spoilers, go watch the movie if you want. Um, but so I remembered that line. And so when I came into the working world, it was in the heart of the Great Recession and the housing market crisis in '08, '09. So when I started working, like what I knew is that I'm like, I just know I need to be doing some kind of investing. I need to be buying stuff. Like I need to be buying real estate. I need to be buying in the stock market. Um, and so I just need to get moving. That's all I really knew. And so I started trying to learn on the fly. Um, so it wasn't like super duper organized, but I was like, I'm gonna just take action because I believe that well done is better than well said.
Okay. So tell me about some of the actions that you took at that time then. Did you buy real estate immediately? Were you just like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo with the stocks and just throwing them in a brokerage account? What did getting
So
started look like?
yeah, so the at first, like my first initial thing was I'm going to take advantage of the company match for the company that I was working for at that time, and saying, okay, I'm going to at least get what they give me. But with me coming fresh out of school, I'm like, man, my nicest piece of furniture was a futon. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, man, I don't have to live fancy just because I've got a good gig or quote unquote deserve it. I was like, no, I don't have to really upgrade my lifestyle. And at that point, I had already helped friends make a budget that that were making less than I was out of school, which I don't even mind shouting out. One of them was my dog, a guy named JP. We actually worked together on making a budget for him when he started work. And I'm like, yo, I can do this too. Even though I'm making more. So I started with doing the company match deal, and I'm like, oh man, I still got plenty of money left over. So I just ratcheted it up to the maximum that was allowable, which I think at that time it may have been $16,000 a year or 16.5, something like that. Um, so that's where I started, and I kind of I wouldn't say I eeny, meeny, miny, mowed it, but it wasn't super deeper than that. Like I picked some general stuff that looked to be diversified, and that was like 90% of my portfolio. And then I did like 10% in my company stock at that time to start. But eventually I did get into real estate, and I started with doing flips back in around like that 09, 2010 time frame.
Okay, hold on one second. Because I got so many questions, but flips will go to next. So first thing is I want to comment on the idea that you and your homeboy made a budget together, because I think that's yet another narrative that we're not hearing. Men talking about finances, working together. This is pretty young. This is almost like, what, 21, 22 years old? You're fresh out of school at this point. And you're like, hey, bro, let's make a budget together. I don't know how the conversation went exactly, but something along those lines. And then, like, not only that, but let me level up. So I make more money than him. I can live off of the same thing as him. Like, let's live off the same. I don't need to do something fancier because I make more. This wasn't about puffing your chest out, which is, once again, part of the narrative that I've heard. You know, my own personal life is like the guy has to this, that, the other. Or, you know, you got to stunt. You're like, no, I'm going to try and live off the same budget he has, even though I have more, which gives me a better opportunity for savings. And then you did kind of date yourself talking about 16.5, because as of this recording, the 20,500 is the maximum you can put into your retirement plan. It does go up incrementally, like usually like every other year-ish. But I think you just gave out some really, really good points that we need to just kind of drive home. It's like you did some really basic things on the very front end, because those are the things that people like, oh, I'm going to do the employer match. And it's a great place to start, but that is not the place to finish. There's a maximum amount that you can put into that retirement plan, and that should be the goal to get going. So thank you for sharing all of those things. Yeah. Making budgeting cool for guys, and guys to do their budget together. Like, I'm here for it. Now let's talk about that flipping a little bit. So next thing we got into was flipping homes. Go ahead, tell us about it. This is the Millionaire Series, so we really want to know how somebody got to this point. Like, we're 21 and we're maxing out our retirement, or 20 something maxing out our retirement. That's a great start.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I've got that part kind of settled. And because it was early, you know, I was young, I'm like, hey man, you know, I'll just do the maximum and live with whatever my paycheck is afterwards, and see if I can live off of that, which I could. Then I'm like, okay, we're good. And then I looked at it and I said, okay, well, you know, I've at least got the ball rolling on the stock market thing. I still want to do that inside man quote, when there's blood in the streets, buy property. So I'm like, I do want to buy property. And I didn't know where to start. And, you know, I'd done some reading of books and things like that, but reading is different than doing. And so I just started having conversations with people about it of, hey, I have interest in it. I mean, I talked to people at my local church that I was attending at that time. At that time, my employer was paying for a training for me to do like Dale Carnegie, like time management and speeches. So like, if they'd give me a chance to do like a 3-minute speech, I just talk about that I wanted to do real estate flipping and what I was hoping to accomplish. And like, there were people in the class who were like, well, I don't do that, but I know some people who might could help you. I know some painters and realtors and things like that. So eventually I got connected with, you know, some realtors and some people that I actually trusted and saw that they were competent, that it started at least showing me some of the deals, talking about how much you needed to put down on an investment property. And then I just started looking at different areas in the city that I lived in at that time. And eventually I found one that it was a foreclosure. It was a foreclosed home. And I knew what the price for the home should be if everything was normal, like the market value, which people will call it a CMA, or a comparative market analysis for you to see what other homes that are similar and in that area are going for. So I use that, and I just reverse engineered it of saying, okay, how much will it take to do the repairs to get this home up to normal size, getting quotes from contractors. Roughly how long do I think I'll have to hold the home before it will sell? And then just did it. Like, I actually bought the house, like put an offer on it, got under contract, started trying to get contractors in line to do the work. And I did have the realtor that helped me buy it helped me on that initial deal of thinking through the order in which the work needed to be done. So, like, for instance, the flooring needed to be the last thing that had to be done and fixing it up, because that's kind of like the finishing touch. Like, you don't want to have a brand new, nice, sparkling
and those contractors
floor
walking all over it, tearing it all up, dust all over the place.
Exactly. And they're tearing up the kitchen and gutting it to, redo it. And so now you've messed up your nice floor. So, things like that. So that's where I started with the first one that I did. And I was thankful I actually made some money off of it. But more importantly, I learned a lot of lessons that helped me to do it again and do it better. And ultimately, I used the proceeds to start buying multifamily properties so that I could get consistent income. Okay,
so to kind of drill down here, the one thing is it costs money to be able to buy that foreclosure. So
yes,
how did you get the money for that? You mentioned saving into the 401k, but were you saving elsewhere? How did you have to kind of like, oh, now I want to do this thing, I don't have enough, I need to save up for X number of a month?
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you answer that first, then I'll ask my second question.
Yeah. So the quick and dirty is, and I mentioned this earlier, that I did have paid work while I was in school. Like, I did those internships. So I made a goal for every internship that I wanted to save at least $5,000. So I did 4 different ones of those. So on the 3, I had 15 grand. And then on my last one, I made a stretch goal and I said I wanted to put aside $10,000. And I was putting these monies into a bank CD or bank CD, certificates of deposit. So I was getting a defined amount of interest on it. But so I used money from that, and people that know me from Clemson, they know what it was. Like, I was working like 6 different jobs while I was on campus, of just doing all kinds of different stuff. So I would use monies from all of this. So by the time I was ready to do the real estate investing, I probably had like $60,000.
Okay, I like it. So to go back now you're getting me off on another tangent.
No, we love tangents.
Yes, you left college with money in the bank, which I think, like I said, yet again, narratives, broke college student. Oh, we got to struggle. Oh, the world is in it. You said you worked a lot, which one thing we didn't cover was how you paid for college. Was there a college fund? Was there student loans, or did you work your whole way through? But you left college with money in the bank, which I think in and of itself is an anomaly.
Right.
That kind of broke the shell of like creating a different path for you to be able to get started on a good foot.
Right. And really what it was is my parents had money that they contributed towards school, and I also worked my butt off to get scholarships. So people who would be local, they would know at the time there was something called the Palmetto Fellow Scholarship, which was like $10,000 a year towards tuition or room and board or whatever you wanted to use the money for. So I had gotten that scholarship, which was a really big one because I was like top in high school class and GPA and all that kind of stuff. But I continued, like I was writing essays, I was doing community service, because my mentality was, I said, when I walk across that stage, I don't want to owe that school anything. Just give me my papers.
Too, right?
Oh yeah, I stayed in state as well. which that's a funny story. I actually wanted to go to UNC Chapel Hill until I saw what that out-of-state tuition was looking like. And I was like, no, I'm good.
Mhm.
I'm good. I'm like, my dream school is the school that I can reasonably afford.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's yet another conversation is sometimes there's schools that have a lot of prestige and is, far across the country. Like we put costs on the back burner and just say, I'll figure it out. But don't realize that has long-term implications of,
right,
maybe choosing something that's more affordable and closer by, because ultimately the piece of paper, and it's going to be what you put into the education at any place.
right.
The books you read, the tests you take, the information that you're trying to gather, and the knowledge that you're going to choose to obtain, it's going to, really create the opportunity for you. So.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to we're flipping homes. We got the down payment. Now we know where the down payment came from for the first one.
Yep.
We made money on the first one. Sounds like I said, you've done a really good job of having good people around you constantly.
Yeah.
Because you talked about some of the things you learned along the way as it pertains, like that helped you maybe not make mistakes with the flip. But the one thing I'm hearing is it didn't sound like it was still easy. And I think one of the narratives I've bumped into quite a bit is, real estate is going to give you mailbox money. It's so easy. It's passive income. Everybody should go out and do it. And, my kind of narrative is that it is not passive. It can become
Right.
at some point passive income. But I think a lot of people are just like, I'm going to get into real estate and money's going to show up in my mailbox. Has that been your path? Is that how it was for you?
Right. People talk about passive income, which I get it. It's amazing how much work or active goes into that passive.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I would say in relation to real estate and really anything. Like, you still have to put in the work. Like, we've got to get past this mentality as a community that there's no work involved or it's light work involved. Like the mentality really should be, man, let's go get it. And I draw so much inspiration from the people that came before me and the stuff that they pushed through and accomplished and achieved anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, I came from these type of people. Man, I can push through the resistance and the adversity that's in front of me. But yeah, no, you definitely got to put in work. You still have to, if you're doing rentals, like you still need to manage the property manager. So you're managing the managers and making sure that things are happening the way that they should, and double checking on some of the repair bills that you may be getting, just to make sure that things are going how they should. But once you get a good system, it is more-ish passive, is what I would say.
It can become passive, but you first have to be very active.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think
you do.
Yeah, and I think we take for granted the idea that like education is a key aspect of anything, taking off and becoming, and the investment of time in the education necessary to turn something into passive is also very, very active. So
Yes.
I think sometimes I get, the reputation for throwing shade at real estate. It's like, it's not so much that I hate investing in real estate. I think, like I said, it's the narratives around it, because I see so many people that are not in good financial situations that, just feel like I'm gonna just go buy a house and that's gonna change my whole life and everything's gonna be better. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. I need somebody to tell the truth here. So
right. No, you still have to think through it. You still have to do work to make sure that things roll the way they need to roll, for sure.
All right. So this is the Millionaire Series. So I think it's no secret, guys. Cat's out the bag. Stephen is a millionaire. And so your message to me, as we were getting ready for the interview prep, is you're 100% debt free, including your home. You paid your house off in 3 years, and you were a millionaire by age 31 through consistent money management, investing in the stock market and in real estate. So we talked about the stock market. We talked about real estate. You've shared some of your cool money management tips here. Kind of bring this story full circle for us by telling us, from where we just were to, present day. How did you become debt free? How did you pay off a home in 3 years? And, what ultimately led to you, hitting that millionaire net worth or by age 31?
Yeah. So like, I'll try to tackle them all. So with the home piece, here's what people need to be mindful of is that you you don't want to just be clueless or mindless when it comes to even the home buying experience. Like for me going into buying the home, I knew I wanted to pay it off relatively soon. Um, so I was already thinking about what do I want to spend on a home early. I didn't care about what I was approved for. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, that doesn't matter because here's what people need to understand about the home buying process. Everybody in it, from the realtor, and again, no shade to any of these people. There's people that are in all of these professions that I think are amazing and awesome and take care of their clients. So hear me with good faith. The realtor, the bank, the loan originators, like it doesn't matter who we're talking about in the process. Everyone benefits if you buy more home. The more money you spend on that home, the more money everybody else in the process makes.
Mm.
But you still, right, but you still have to pay the mortgage. And let me give y'all some real talk stuff. Cause we doing this millionaire thing. Like I'm gonna just talk to you real. I'm free in real life. So like I ain't got no reason to sugarcoat nothing for nobody.
Yes. Give it to us real.
Right. Here's the reality. It doesn't matter how much you pay for that home. Within 6 to 12 months, it's just gonna be your house. The newness is likely gonna wear off, and that's just gonna be where you live. Mm. But you know what won't wear off? That mortgage payment that you drop in every first of the month, 15th of the month, whatever date that mortgage is auto drafted from your account, or you're manually doing it, whatever the setup is, the newness will wear off, but the payment will still be there. So when you're looking at a home, I'm not saying that you have to live in the slums, but just be mindful of what you're spending when you get it. And that's what I did. So the first home purchased, I'm like, hey, it's a starter home. It's just, I just want to get a place, be established. It was actually a foreclosure, bought it, fixed it up. It instantly had equity in it. And I wasn't as concerned about how fancy it was. I'm like, hey, it's in a good area. It's one of the lower priced homes in a nicer area. So there should be demand for it. But then when I got to the home that I'm in now, I used proceeds from equity of selling the old one to be able to put a significant amount down on the home I currently live in and be able to put myself in a place to be able to pay it down. Now, the plan was to pay it off in 5 years, but had some investments go extremely well, and ended up knocking it out in 3. So I just wanted to at least help give people the mindset of even how to come into buying a home is like, think about it. Think about what your goals are, where you want to be, how you want your life to play itself out. And I knew I could have gotten a better return in the market instead of paying it off, but I was already a millionaire by the time I paid the house off. And for me personally, because personal finance is personal, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be in a space where I could have ultimate clarity of mind in all financial decisions. Because paying off the house means that I could get a job at McDonald's. and cover all expenses.
I didn't pay him to say that, y'all. Like, anybody who's an avid listener of this podcast knows that that's my saying. It's like I also own my house in full, and it's exactly that was going to be my next question for you, was about like, what do you say to the critics? Because some people are just like, but why would you not have a mortgage when you can be making X% over here in the market and, you know, only paying X% on your mortgage? And for me, it was definitely about my risk tolerance and that clarity, that peace of mind. And I always say the same things, like I can go work at McDonald's and I can cover my property taxes and insurance. So I don't have the stress around money making decisions because I have the roof over my head. That part is covered.
Right.
So we are aligned in that regard.
Nice. She really did not pay me.
Right.
I had no idea that was a statement that she says. For real. That's just how I personally saw it. And even for those, like you said, that they're like, oh, you could have got a return somewhere else. So I won't get into the super weeds here, but I'll just say it like this. I had the best investment return I've had in my life actually came after I paid my home off, because I had more appetite for calculated risk. And we'll just keep it real. We doing the Millionaire Series. It was an 80x return, for those who are wondering.
Okay, I'm here for 80x returns. Yes. All right, so let's go back, just like rewind for just a second onto the, millionaire by age 31. Did you have like a clear goal to be a millionaire by X date? Did you kind of start to track your progress in some sort or formal way to be like, okay, I'm getting close. I'm going to hit it by this time. Like, what was kind of like the last like lead up? You made a lot of great financial decisions, but how did you get to millionaire by 31? And what would you say to people who think they can't be millionaire by, 31 or are 35 now and they're just like, I got $10 in the bank. Like, how am I ever going to do it? How do you turn it around and turn it into something that, this is something they're trying to achieve?
Yeah. So, well, for me personally, when I had first really started, professional work, full-time work, all that, career type stuff, my goal was just to be what I like to call retireable by 45. So I just wanted to be in a space where by 45, I could do whatever I wanted. If I did not like whatever kind of career setup I was in, that I could pivot and just do whatever, like how we talked about McDonald's. And no shade to McDonald's, good people there. But so that was my thought process was that, but I was investing in historic lows in the stock market and in real estate at that time. So we just got to be clear about even what the dynamic in the environment was when I started, and I was moving aggressively in that space. So that helped me kind of, shoot off. But for people that they're saying, hey, what about me? How do I get there? What do I do? One of the most slept on things that I don't hear enough financial people talk about is, man, get your income up. Like people, they'll talk about all these different things and, hey, you can make it off of a certain salary. And I'm like, man, I don't want us to just make it. I don't want us to just survive. Can we thrive? Can we do that? In whatever that looks like. So what that means is, hey, you know what? Your passion may be to major in basket weaving, but basket weaving ain't where it's at. So how can we look?
Swallow, but
right. It is, but again, I'm just trying to give it to y'all real. I'm trying to give it to y'all real, because people may say, hey man, I want to cancel. Yo, don't worry, I'm free. You can't cancel me because I'll just leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I'll exit myself. Y'all don't have to worry about pushing me out. I'm just trying to tell you that it's important. Like, try to do work in high income generating fields. That's the first thing. So that you just have more. You got a bigger shovel that you're working with. So I would say that's the first thing, is try to look to increase your income. So you may be working in a job that, or in a field that doesn't pay a lot. I'd say, man, start building skills now to make you more commercially viable. People are changing jobs all over the place. It's the great resignation. You know what I mean? So like, build your skills and launch out, put yourself out there. So get your income up, and then don't upgrade your lifestyle with that. Don't do the lifestyle creep. So if you go from making 60,000 to 100,000, don't increase your lifestyle up 40 grand too. Say, okay, let me manage how I'm living and truly look to invest the difference. And the last thing I'll say is, just along this line of thought, is as much as possible, try to automate your investing so that life doesn't happen to you and you just forget. I mean, people, you can forget what you ate last night. So it could be really hard to just remember to invest month after month after month. So I think it's important to let technology work for you to automate your investments.
I love it. So many gems just dropped. The first is one that we talk about frequently. It is, like you said, increasing your income. And for me, it's been really hard to hear, like I said, so many of, the big narrative of, you can make money quick, you can get rich quick, you can get passive income, you can do all these different things. And to see, people of lesser incomes, people in the Black community, people who, are not financially literate, be preyed upon because they feel like, I'd save $500, I'm gonna go flip a house now. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. There's not lies being told in the things that people are saying, but there's a whole bunch of steps that are being missed in order for you to actually be successful at what people are saying. And what you're laying out here is, like I said, a strong financial foundation, proper money management, making sure that, like you said, you have the income. And you talked about investing during the down market. Like you got in at a really good time, but you also had to have money to get in so that your money could grow. So the savings piece of getting in is, where am I saving my money? I'm either spending less than I earn, or I'm earning more so that I have more to save. And those foundational principles kind of get thrown out with the baby in the bathwater every single time. Like, oh, that's not important. Like, if we don't have money, if we don't have any savings, we can't do any of these other things to be able to level up with our finances. And so I really appreciate you just kind of bringing that real talk. That's how you get to millionaire status at 31. That's how you get debt free. 30 years is a mortgage. Everybody's talking about getting a house. And they're trying to get as much house as possible, the lowest down payment as possible. Can I afford it on a monthly basis? Like, mindset is such a key piece of us being able to change the trajectory of the life that we want to live. Like, why not be thinking about, let's pay it off in 3 years. Let's pay it off in 5. Let's pay it off in 15 if you're not quite ready. But why are we even thinking 30 years down the road? Because that's the number they're shoving in our face. No, let's not do that. Let's do what we want to do for ourselves and our family and our future. So, okay, I'm getting on the bandwagon a little bit. This is your podcast, not mine. So it's about you.
No, I'm chilling. I'm a guest.
This is your episode, Stephen. So bring us home with, we didn't talk a lot about like mistakes. You did a lot of things really well to make it to millionaire status. But one thing I would like to share, if you could share some of the mistakes you made along the way, some of the, things that areas where you felt like, oh, I needed to like make a little change here, do some improvement. Like, are you perfect financially?
No, I'm not. And here's the great thing about wealth building. You don't have to be perfect to become wealthy. You just need to keep moving. That's really it. Just keep moving, keep building. Like, I can remember, like, when I first was really trying to figure out investing in college, I invested in something. This was a big mistake, and it's something that stuck with me, and I'm glad it happened early. Is I think I invested like $1,500, which in college might as well have been like 50,000. You know what I mean? Or 100 grand. You know what I mean? Like, it was meaningful money to me at that time. And I invested in some kind of real estate oriented deal that I did not understand. And so please hear me. One of the biggest mistakes a person can make, and I know because I'm one who made it, is to invest in stuff that you have no understanding of. Like, you don't understand how everyone makes money, which, by the way, you want other people to make money. It's okay. Like that's how it's sustainable, is if all parties make money. I didn't understand how the money was going to be made, or just the workings of the investment. And of course it flopped completely. So that was definitely a mistake that I had made. But thankfully it was something that stuck with me, to say, okay, I at least need to have an understanding of how all parties actually make money. You know, I mean, just in the process of things. So that was big. And another one, which thankfully I caught this early, was understanding fee structure on investments, particularly in, like stock market, just understanding what are your actual expenses. That's a big one that I think relates to everybody, like average person to, ultra savvy investor.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. I think you gave us a bunch of good information. So we're going to start wrapping up here. We're moving to the area I like to call the final sprint. For the Millionaire Series, we're doing a little bit different. So if you haven't listened to the last episode, go back and check it out so you can see how we did it. But never fear, stay here for a second because we're about to do it right now. Okay, so they're rapid fire questions and you answer as you see fit.
Okay.
All right. So what frugal things are you still doing in life right now, despite being a millionaire?
I still, so I'll, I still try to avoid like little fees, for things like, so when I'll get haircuts, there's like some kind of like convenience fee for doing it online. And I know my time is worth far more than the few dollars that I'll save, but I'll still like just call in my appointment to save a few dollars, which, I may give it as a tip to the barber instead, but I'd rather do that than give it to the processing people. So that's one.
You just keep dropping the gems though. So this is about like being intentional about where you spend your money. This is something I also started doing recently, is with, Lyft or Uber, waiting that extra period of time, or trying to like order it earlier so that I have that extra period of time to wait, and then reallocating that to the tip. Because it's like, why would I give my money to Lyft that's going to give them, 2% of that, whatever the extra $3 that they're charging me, when I can just give them a $3 tip that they get exactly. So it's just about being intentional. It's not so much that I'm unwilling to spend the money. It's about where I want to spend the money.
Right. And I'm going to give an extra gem on that point. And this is something I still do to this day. So if you were to be sitting down with me in a restaurant, I order water every time I'm at a sit down restaurant. And it's not necessarily to save money on, like a carbonated drink, like, Sprite or something like that. It's because I want to funnel that into the tip for the server. So instead of spending like $2 or $3 extra on a drink, I'm like, man, water is better for my body anyway. And I want to funnel this money to this server who is making like $2 to $5 an hour plus tips. So I want to actually be able to push it to them.
I like it. I like it. Worst advice you've ever received?
Oh God. So I'll give you two. Worst advice. First one is saving is the way to wealth, which is not true. Investing is the way to wealth. If you save only, you will get eaten alive by inflation. Because your savings account won't produce enough of an interest rate of return for you to keep up with inflation. So that's one. And then the second one I want to say, just as a statement that I heard, and I thoroughly rejected, which is people said, oh, college would be the best 4 years of your life. And my response to that was speak for yourself.
Mm. Ooh, well then. That sounds like a whole other podcast episode right there.
Right. We get a little spicy out here.
Okay. Why are you not worried about people knowing that you're a millionaire?
So here's what ended up happening. So, I mean, I went for years without people actually knowing that I was. And I felt a personal burden of saying, man, it's hard for people to be what they do not see.
Mm.
And especially being a man of color, being African American. I know what the data says. I know what the numbers say on how many of us there are. And then especially to be a millennial too. So I just wanted to really push back on the narrative of what people see, of what they have accepted wealth to be, and just say, hey, there is a different pathway. There's a different way. And there's regular people that are out here doing it for real. In ways that are different than what people say.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Finish this sentence. That awkward financial moment when.
Oof. When someone is giving investment advice or money advice and it's clear that they don't know what they're talking about.
Do you call them out?
So I keep it real with people. Mm-hmm. I really do. I'm a nice person in real life. I really am. So I try to kindly and gently offer an alternative to what people share, just because sometimes people, they just don't know. They haven't heard different. And so to be able to just say, hey, I understand where you're coming from with that. Here's another vantage point. Here's another perspective on how to look on that.
I like it. I like it. You got to be very articulate, very organized and structured with your words so that you can say you're wrong in love.
Right.
All right. What's your worst money habit?
Oh gosh. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it's like I said, maybe it's the random stuff, like I said, with the barber stuff of just doing that, knowing that my time is actually more valuable than that activity. So I guess it would be something that maybe falls in that lane.
Got it.
Of doing that, because I do actually still enjoy life. You know what I mean? So everything isn't about just wealth building. I still like to actually live and give and do self-care and travel and things like that. So,
ooh, that's one thing that we did not talk a lot about was giving. What is kind of your approach or your thought on, tithing, charitable giving, and how are you, doing that part of your life?
Yeah, so that was something that I definitely, as I mentioned, got from my parents. Of at age 4, I was giving 1/10 of all that I received, and I've done that my entire life. At least that's been the floor on my giving. But I very much believe that we are blessed to be a blessing. And that when we are generous to others, it will sort itself out. And it also helps us not to be so self-absorbed or greedy, just thinking about ourselves, but to remember, man, there's other people out here, and that the world does not revolve just around us. So.
I like it. Okay, last one for real, guys. We're done. I just found something to be so interesting. We've gone way over, but I hope you're still with us because you're enjoying it as much as I am. Okay, to finish up, can you tell us one thing that you would like to improve about your personal finances in the upcoming year?
So my theme, so I have themes for every year. Last year, my theme was rooted, of just saying, hey, I want to be rooted in who I am, no matter how far up I go. This year, the theme is joyful focus. And so the thing that I want to improve upon is just to have that much more joy in the journey while maintaining focus. So I have marks that I want to hit every month as far as from an investing standpoint, a giving standpoint, and then say, okay, when I hit those marks, what are the intentional things that I'm going to do that bring joy to my life and to those around me? So that's been a real thing for me this year.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. You have made it to the finish line. It was it's probably like a 400. I'm a 100-meter runner, so that's the sprint in my life.
Nice.
But they say the 400 is a sprint. That was more like a 400 sprint we just did. Right.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there. You are on the podium. You have won the race. You are a gold medalist on the Worth Listening podcast. Yes. Shout yourself out. So this is your time to shine. Tell us how we can support you, where we can find you, all the things that you want us to know. Go for it.
For sure. So one simple way, I've got a website. It's StephenLStack.com, and Stephen with a V. L Stack, STACK, like a stack of boxes.com. So that's one way. I am on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Stacking with Stack. So my handle is actually Stacking with Stack. Do the same for Facebook. And technically I do, have a TikTok as well. It's the same thing, Stacking with Stack. But that I post stuff regularly of just encouraging people, challenging people, but ultimately just trying to push folks towards a better, more whole view and perspective on money and wealth building.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This has been excellent. I know so many people are going to be encouraged and enlightened and excited and impacted by all that you said today. So thank you so much for being on the show, Stephen.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I enjoyed it.